Hi folks. Um, Decided to give this video um thing a go again. It's not something I'm quite comfortable with, but I'm gonna give it a go and see what happens and have some fun with it. The purpose of this video, I want to speak on a topic that's kind of come up into my awareness this past week and is in the collective awareness and conversation. Um, on masculinity and what masculinity is, what healthy masculinity is, what toxic masculinity is, and so on and so forth. I was watching, I don't really watch TV, but I was on Twitter, X, and saw clips of RTE program earlier this week, and Ben Scallon of Gript Media was on the panel along with a school teacher called Owen Cleary. And they were talking about what masculinity is, or they were asked the question of what masculinity is, what their perceptions of masculinity is. And on from my own point of view and perspective, this has been a topic and subject I've been really interested in and kind of studying for a number of years now, in within myself and through my own process of becoming a man. And wanted to understand what it means to be a man and what it means to be a good man and a healthy man and a strong man. Um, so they were asked these questions anyway, and Ben Scallon, who is a journalist, he spoke in the traditional view of masculinity as being, men being the protectors and providers um, of the family unit, of the tribe, of the clan, so to speak, and that their responsibility lies within creating, building, fighting, protecting the more vulnerable people within society. And this is the commonly held view and traditionally held view and perspective on the subject. And it's a lot more nuanced and there's a lot more depth to it than that. But if we look at the traditional roles of men in society, there would have been craftsmen, tradesmen, artists, poets, warriors, kings, um, learned men, philosophers, and so forth and so on, judges and that kind of thing. And they're the roles that men would typically fulfill in society, and in kind of strong, healthy societies. And the man would typically build the home, build the house, let's say, and the woman would create the home. So men would build the structure of the house and work outside of the house in order to bring in resources. And then the woman, in her magnificence and creativity, would alchemize all of that into a home and create a family within the protective structure of the house, with the man as protector. And if there was a home invasion, the man would be expected to defend um, his family. And Ben outlined it as as such. And the opposing view put forward by the other man on the panel, um, who happened to be a school teacher and a secondary school teacher, which is an interesting thing, which I'll speak into in a second. And he put forward the point of view that he neither felt the need or desire to protect the women in his life or provide for them. And he also put at the end that he nearly expected them to provide for him, which traditionally is the view of a boy, of an uninitiated man. And there's a lot more I can say about this and that at the moment, um, or in time to come. But at the moment, that was the opposing view put forward. And after he said that, it panned to the audience, and two of the young women there um, had kind of looks of disgust on their face. And that was a very natural and organic and healthy response to that perspective and to that point of view. Hmm. So I was sitting with this because that really pissed me off. It's a subject and topic I'm really passionate about. And hearing that point of view and how that was put forward and um, the way it was put forward was a bit pathetic, to be honest. But it speaks to this underlying issue or problem of uninitiated child men being in roles of responsibility, such as a school teacher, in raising the next generation. But it's not just school, it's not just found in within schools, it's found within politics, it's found within economics, it's found at all levels of society. Um, Today, there are many reasons why that is so. Um, One being the lack of clear and distinct rites of passage and initiation for men within society. And if I want to go to the origin of it and um, of this kind of dis-ease or pathology, because it's not natural, it's not organic. Any healthy initiated man will know that within the cells of their being. Same with any women. Healthy women will feel the um, the deceit within that, um, and the weakness within that. And where it originates from is with the Industrial Revolution, men were taken out of the home. So men would have had, would have been predominantly farmers, tradesmen, um, people engaged with community in service roles, etc. But they would have been home a lot and within their home a lot as a father figure, um, as a guiding figure and as a protector and provider. But during the Industrial Revolution, the men were taken out of the home and they were working in labor in factories, long hours, poor pay, poor conditions, and the women and children were left at home. So they were vulnerable, they were susceptible to propaganda and ideologies that began to formulate, which would be more aligned with like communism and socialism. And later, as we progressed, to expand the tax base of the population, there was this women's rights movement. And while well-intentioned and well-meaning and legitimate, the feminist movement became co-opted. And we've been within this kind of messaging of um, women can go out into the workforce and become career focused and earn a living and not be dependent on men, which is fair enough. I've no kind of qualms about that. Um, and as I said before, there's a very nuanced topic and discussion. So there's like a really brief kind of overview of it. But what that meant was that women were then taken out of the homes and into the workforce, um, given voting rights so that they can now be taxed by governments and for the benefit of bankers and the banks. So that left the children vulnerable. And at the, they started school a lot earlier. So typically they wouldn't have started school until like 6 or 7, but now it became 4 or 5. And then you have like Montessori 2 and 3 and care minders and all of that, which are run by the state. And so now the state has become the surrogate parent. And we've been on this track for however many decades um, or so, and we've seen an erosion of the family unit. So with children being raised outside of the family and outside of the home, um, within the schooling system, within the education system, which is outdated and not sufficient. Um, it's based on industrial societal norms and standards. And without connection to for men, for young boys, without connection to strong father figures and mentors and um, people to guide them in their development, without rites of passage and initiation, we have we now see the are seeing the effects of that, which is uninitiated boys being in leading roles within society. And this is where this kind of pathology arises from of not wanting to protect, not being expected to protect, not being expected to provide, and that going that step further of expecting the women to provide for the man, which is um, biologically irrational and destructive in so many ways. So I was sitting with this and wanting to speak into it, but wanting to speak into it in a constructive way and wanted to speak into healthy masculinity in a constructive way. And I picked up this book yesterday. It's called The Principles of Freedom by Terence MacSwiney, who was an Irish Republican. He was the mayor of Cork. And he wrote this book while in prison. And there's a lovely passage in it where he speaks kind of um, to this topic, and I want to read it out because it puts it very poetically in terms of what the essence of healthy masculinity is, and exerts a caution to the other side of masculinity, which isn't masculinity. It's um, the lack of masculinity, the lack of initiated masculinity. So I'm going to read it, and hopefully you can get an understanding of where I'm coming from it. And he opens with the error of the other side, um, and their perception. His difficulty now is the common error that a man's work for his country should be based on the assumption that it should bear full effect in his own time. This is most certainly false, for a man's life is counted by years, and nations by centuries, and as work for the nation should be directed to bringing her to full maturity in the coming time, a man must be prepared to labor for an end that may be realized only in another generation. Consider how he disposes his plans for his individual life. His boyhood and youth are directed that his manhood and prime may be the golden age of life, full-blooded, strong-minded, with clear vision and great purpose and high hope, all justified by some definite achievement. A man's prime is great, as his earlier years have been well directed and concentrated. In the early years, the ground is prepared and the seed sown for the splendid period of full development. So it is with the nation. We must prepare the ground and sow the seed for the rich ripeness of maturity, and bearing in mind that the maturity of the nation will come not in one generation, but after many generations. We must be prepared to work in the knowledge that we prepare for a future that only other generations will enjoy. It does not mean that we shall work in loneliness, cheered by no vision of the promised land. We may even reach the promised land in our time, though we cannot explore all its great wonders. That will be the delight of ages. But some will never survive to celebrate the great victory that will establish our independence. Yet they shall not go without reward. For to them will come a vision of soul of the future triumph, an exaltation of soul in the consciousness of laboring for that future, an exaltation of soul in knowledge that once its purpose is grasped, no tyranny can destroy it, that the destiny of our country is assured and her dominion will endure forever. Let any argument be raised against one such pioneer. He knows that in his heart, and it makes him indomitable, and it is he who is proven to be wise in the end. He judges the past clearly, and through the crust of things he discerns the truth in his own time, and puts his work in true relation to the great experience of life. And he is justified, for ultimately his work opens out, matures, and bears fruit 100-fold. It may not be in a day, but when his hand falls dead, his glory becomes quickly manifest. He has lived a beautiful life and has left a beautiful field. He has sacrificed the hour to give service for all time. He has entered the company of the great, and with them he will be remembered forever. He is the practical man in the true sense. But there is the other self-styled practical man, who thinks all this proceeding foolish, and cries out for the expedient of the hour. Has he ever realize the promise of his proposals? No, he is the most inefficient person who has ever walked the earth. But for a saving consideration, let him go contemplate the wasted efforts of the opportunist in every generation and the broken projects scattered through the desert places of history. Within this piece, Terence, um, obviously both speaking about kind of the nation's independence at the time, Ireland, from Britain, but also highlighting the essence of what a practical man is about. And when I speak with men and I ask them of their visions and their dreams for the future, they will inevitably bring family into the picture and wanted to be a good father and a good husband. And I had two calls earlier this week with two amazing men. And from what they were sharing, the essence of their understanding and the values that they want to live up to and live out in the world are summarized within that passage in terms of honesty, integrity, strength, courage, service, um, charitableness, and love. Love for oneself, one's family, one's nation, one's country, just love for other people. And he outlines, when he speaks of the process that, a man's youth and boyhood has to be concentrated and directed, guided, led, initiated through struggle, through challenge, through being tempered by life challenges and life struggles. And that is the defining factor of most initiations and rites of passage is that there is this very real threat of death and not surviving. And in times past in our history, often young boys at the age right around puberty would be sent out into the wilderness for 3 days to survive. And oftentimes they didn't and they died. But if they did, they would have come face to face with their death and mortality and returned back into the tribe with this deeper appreciation for life and their place within it. And all of that is to set the foundation to sow the seeds of of being a man. And the concept of being a teenager is very, very recent. It's very new. In times past, it was just boyhood, manhood. So once you crossed puberty and underwent a trial of initiation, you then returned a man. And with that came the responsibilities of being a man. Alongside that is an understanding of the clan's mythology, their stories, their histories, their traditions, their ways, as well as the roles. in which they were expected to fulfill, i.e., building, providing, hunting, defending, leading, collaborating, and leaving a mark in the world, leaving the world some bit better than when they came into it, leaving a legacy. And for that to occur, one needs to be strong, vital, healthy, have a long time horizon. So, not be expedient for the moment, but to sacrifice instant gratification, to sacrifice the hour in service of all time. And if it so happens to sacrifice oneself and one's life for those more vulnerable than him. And one defining, as I've just spoken about, kind of factor within that is not thinking in days, months, and a short number of years, but in decades and centuries, in understanding everything that has come before and being able to see that clearly and to discern the truth within history, because most of history, as we know it, is a lie. To be able to discern the truth of the past in order to envision a clearer future, a more prosperous future. It is about planting a tree under which you won't sit. And this is how passionate I am about this. And it's really an honor to be able to sit with men and hear about the trees that they wish to plant for future generations, not just the one that'll come after them, but for future generations to come. And that's why, while I can see the underlying truth of this other perspective of being expedient within the hour and being of service to self and not wanting to protect or provide for those most vulnerable or expecting them to provide for you um, as a man. While I can see the underlying issue there of it coming from a place of boyhood and uninitiated masculinity, I also hold it with some contempt and disdain because that is a threat to not only the health of society as it is today, but the prospects of creating a healthy and more prosperous future for the next generation. And so while we're figuring this out and remembering this within society, within ourselves, it is important that we celebrate our differences, the differences between men and women, and that that is what makes us beautiful and amazing and incredible. And it's not to put one over the other in terms of strength and weakness or anything like that, but is to honor the inherent beauty within both, within healthy masculinity and healthy femininity. One creating life and bringing life into this world, which is a very vulnerable state and place to be in, process to be in. And the other to be that strong container and structure in offering that provision and that protection. And in saying that, I can reflect on my own process and my own journey into this, I guess, awareness of having been in this uninitiated place and state. And a part of me craving this initiation, craving this mentorship and guidance, and seeking that out and going through really challenging times and trials and tribulations for the purpose of refining myself so that I can be of service, so that I can be a responsible man and member of society, member of family, community, society. And when I speak with men and I hear their reflections of their work with men and the pain most men are carrying and holding, and the kind of fear that's been bred in to them around masculinity and around toxic masculinity and the lack of self-trust and the heightened inner criticism that comes with that, and that kind of festering and growing and becoming destructive to the self. It is this kind of this deeper part of them, their soul and their psyche, that is actually crying out for initiation and wanting to be seen, respected, and honored in their manhood and in their masculinity. and what they can provide and how they can protect. And so, hmm, so when I sit across from them and listen to them and engage with them, that is what I attempt to reconnect them with what Terence MacSwiney just wrote about there is their vitality, their health, their vision, and creating that deeper sense of self-trust in those strong traits of what it means to be a good man, a responsible man, a beautiful man, a true man, an authentic man, and to support them, to see them, to honor that, and to encourage them in whatever they're trying to build in the world. And that's what we need more of. And you see how emotional it makes me because it's a very, very charged topic, and it's a very triggering topic and conversation to have right now. And I hope I've done it justice to some degree for both men and women, and that I hope it becomes more widely conversed about because I think it's if we look back to my grandparents' generation, this wasn't a topic of discussion. It was just inherently known almost, and it was just lived out. But we find ourselves in a position where it has to be discussed and it has to be talked about, and people are so lost and confused, and there's so much um, kind of tension and dissension around it. Um, that we need to be having these conversations. So that was been the purpose of me coming on and sharing this, and I hope it lands well. Um, and I'm fully open for discussion and um, contradiction, even, and all of that is fine and it's welcome. But yeah, this is what's been stirring kind of within me over the last while, and just from seeing the men that I engage with and the wider collective zeitgeist and current um, consciousness within society, it is my hope and my wish and my intention that we can regain some sense of clarity around this topic, and that we can reinstall and reinstate healthy rites of passage and initiation and begin building once again towards healthy family structures, family units, communities. And it's not to say that it's gone completely, because I see it every day. And get engaged with it every day, in my own life and community. But yeah, I think I'll leave it there for now. And um, yeah, welcome any further conversation around the topic and discussion. But yeah, thanks for listening and thanks for watching.